Have you ever been asked to be the lion in your business, to be bold in life, to really seek to go beyond what you feel like feels natural? Well, I've definitely been there, and it doesn't quite feel right. You feel like you're, misaligned with who you are and what you want to be, what you believe in, what is coursing through your veins. And that's why when I was speaking with Bec, I was able to kind of explore this world in a little bit of a different way. And I wanted to share that with you. So I have Bec here, and she's going to tell you a little bit about who she is, what she does, and how we can get that fluidity between that spiritual sentiment of who you are and what you bring to the world and what the world brings to you, and how you can actually take that to apply it to your business. To stop listening to all those people who are telling you to be bold and hard and fast, that we were talking about pro marketing. Let's take a step back and kind of listen a little bit more closely to what the real voices are telling us within ourselves. So Bec, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and why it matters to you and why it should matter to everybody else.
Thanks, Shauna. I'm so excited for this. Thank you for having me. And who am I and why does it matter to me and you? It's a really good question. So I'm a spiritual business coach. And as you said, what I do is I support incredible humans to build businesses that really align with who they are and, doesn't compromise their values and their spirituality. So I support spiritual women in particular to build abundant, profitable, sustainable businesses. And I do that in a way that helps you to bring together all of those elements of yourself and build a business that really supports you to live the life you want to live. So it supports you in all seasons of life. And I know both you and I are mums. And so, for us at the moment, that looks like supporting us to be mums and to support our families and what that looks like. But I work with clients from, all walks of life at all different stages of life and support them to, really lean into, okay, well, I want to build this business. This is my purpose, my passion. These are my values. This is what my spirituality looks like. This is who I am. How do I build a business around that supports that and that really helps to bring that passion to life, to make profit from your passion, and to have an impact in the world. And so that's what I do. And you should care about that because I want you to build a business that feels really good. I don't want you to build a business that, feels like you're going against everything that you believe. It is possible to build a business and do business in a way that really aligns with your values and who you are as a person and as a spiritual being.
That's so important. And so many people forget, or maybe they don't forget, but they've had such a different outlook ingrained in them from the get-go that even somebody entering into entrepreneurship, which is a very independent thinking type of space, still has that kind of underlying mentality whereby, like I said at the beginning about being a lion, and I always envision that woman who enters into the business world and she feels as though she's forced to wear a pantsuit. Mm-hmm. Or something to that effect, when really she'd just like to wear bangles and bright colors and a summer dress. Can she not be professional and function better than adequately in both attire?
Yes.
Right? And that gets carried through to our business oftentimes. And it's really a shame because sometimes, well, I mean, my opinion is that all the time, if you're able to show up in your true form within and around yourself, you're going to produce the best quality work for the people who you're here to serve.
Yes, 100%. And, you get to be you get to do you, and you get to be successful and help people and do all of the things, right? Like you don't have to compromise all of that. And I think it's so true. Like so often, particularly if you've come from the corporate space into business, you just almost accidentally, even though the whole point of you being in business is to be your own boss, kind of create a corporate environment for yourself. And then you're like, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing?
Yeah. And you have to kind of give yourself a shake and go, whoa, hold up. Who am I? And can I do this? Can I keep doing it? Actually, I'm going to say, usually you start realizing I can't keep doing this. That's the first thing, right? You hear people all the time. A lot of the people who I'm working with too, I just can't keep doing this. And it's because they've fallen into that trap. And so what we're looking at is by tapping into that spirituality, by tapping into that aligned way of being, we're able to create a business model that is actually sustainable. And this is where like a lot of people get all mixed up because they think spirituality and they can disconnect it from strategy. And it's actually a very strategic approach. Right. So this sustainable business comes from what people perceive to be the opposite of strategy. Have you encountered, yes. I'm curious because this is something that's been in my brain, this idea of this dichotomy between the two. Have you encountered a lot of kickback in that space with regards to spirituality versus strategy?
I think there's always some kind of give and take in people's mind, and it really depends on where people sit around that already, you know, like what preconceived notions they bring to the table before they kind of start. And I think it's this idea that if I'm, you know, I have to keep these things separate, you know, and so it's like I'm going to be spiritual in my life, but then I'm going to be, you know, business-like over here. You know, I work with clients who are in the spiritual business space specifically, and so obviously that's part of their brand. But then I have other clients who, you know, are spiritual and then they want to run their business in, you know, a way that aligns with those values. And so they'll be in kind of more mainstream businesses, but they'll be behind the scenes kind of, you know, looking at, okay, how do I bring my intuition here? How do I trust my intuition here? How do I, you know, build this business in a way that kind of feels really good as opposed to, you know, I'm just going to do what everybody's told me to do because that's the way I quote unquote should be doing things. And so I've definitely encountered that give and take. But when we bring them together, that obviously does look different to everyone because it's very much a unique thing and personal thing, but it looks like really going, okay, first and foremost, what do I want here? What's my vision here? What's my, you know, what am I feeling pulled towards? What's my intuition telling me? And then going, okay, well, what does that look like in action? You know, what does that look like in terms of my offers? What does that look like in terms of my strategy? What does that look like in terms of my marketing and how I want to show up? And we start from that place of really honoring self first and then layering the, okay, well, what does that mean in terms of what I'm doing and how I'm showing up? And what can happen is if we're disconnected from that self, we're just going to show up in the way we think we should. And it's not necessarily going to feel very good, or we're going to get to that place of burnout. Like it's, you know, it's very disconnected. What we want to do is connect the two. And actually, when we lead from that place of, you know, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is how I want to show up, and this is how I know it's going to connect with my people, right? Then we're going to have a strategy that supports that. And that's the key.
That's so something that I talk to all of my people about too. And I use my hands, but they represent a Venn diagram. I love it. Overlap them a little bit. And where my fingers kind of connect is my overlap of the Venn. And that's really just that idea of who you are, how you love to show up, who your audience is, how they love to receive that information, receive you, right? And that in between space is that sweet spot is what I always say. It's that sweet spot in marketing and how you're showing up. And something else that kind of came into my mind. So you said what it looks like find out what that looks like in action. And I'm hearing people say, okay, but how do I find out what that looks like in action? Because there's so much going on. You and I both know this. Within and around you, psychologically, spiritually, environmentally, our circumstances are such that there's a lot to deal with. So how are you helping people through all of these questions that are coming up for them so that they can actually create an actionable, spiritually based strategy that will create progress in their business?
Awesome. That's such a good question. I love that. So the how do we do this? I think I always like giving examples because I think that's helpful. And so to give you an example of what this looks like for me, or what that has looked like for me in the past is, for example, when I had my first child, so he's now 4. When I first had him, my business looked very different, and it was very much a one-to-one based, service-based business, and I was working with clients one-to-one. When he was born, I obviously had a lot less time, and so I went, okay, my business needs to look different because I can't keep doing this because I don't have the capacity to run, a profitable business and make the money I need to, essentially, at this level of one-to-one. But I also wanted to maintain the intimacy of that at the same time. And so I needed to kind of create a scalable model that allowed me to still have that kind of hands-on with clients, but also allowed me to scale it and to serve more people with the time that I had. And so I created a group program and mastermind model for my business, essentially. So what that looks like is like going, okay, well, what do I need? Like, what are the things that are needed for me in this season of life, for example, and what feels really good for me in terms of how I want to show up and support my clients. So I knew that I still wanted that intimacy, but I needed to create a model that allowed that and facilitated that. And so when I work with a client, it's like, okay, well, where are you at right now? What does that look like for you in your business? What's working really well? What's not working really well? What's feeling really good? What's not feeling so good? How can we honor all of those things? And then go, okay, well, what's the decision here? Do we need to make a change to your office suite? Do we need to make a change to how you're showing up? Is it feasible for you to show up in all of these different, marketing channels? Do we have to streamline something? Can we automate something? Are you spending heaps of time doing this?
I'm just going to pipe in and say, if the question is, can we streamline or automate something in marketing while still retaining its authenticity? The answer is yes. The answer is we want to do this. We want to streamline. We want to automate while retaining our authenticity.
Yeah.
While staying true to ourselves. That's very important. But the answer to those, always yes. For anybody listening, I'm going to tell you want to do that. Time is money. And more than that, time is energy. And your energy is valuable and you want to expend that intentionally. So, okay. We're asking all these questions. We're coming up with blocks. Because it happens, right? Like I know myself. When I was first starting, I remember so many times when I would say, yeah, but it was like my catchphrase. Yeah, but. And all those were they were just blocks. They were mindset blocks. They were real environmental blocks. So when you're working with people, like what sort of strategies are you using? And what are you tapping into in order to allow them to kind of I always see people tight, right? How do you let them release and move into that space where they can feel free, they can feel the flow and actually create the sustainable business founded in their spiritual being?
So there's a couple of things, and I suppose it's identifying what those blocks are. Like, what are the yeah buts? What is the excuse that's coming up? Or what is the thing that's going, oh, but I could never do that because that's really scary, like live video, what? Being on a podcast, what? Those things that, if you've never done them before, that's incredibly, like, putting yourself out there in that way, there's a reason we feel that fear. And it's because, our mind, our ego mind, whatever you want to call it, wants to keep us safe, and wants to keep us, safe in our little cocoon and doesn't want us to step outside that comfort zone, right? Building a business is something you've probably never done before. And so, of course, it's going to feel a little bit like, ooh, this is out of my comfort zone. And so anytime we do anything, and, this is not something that goes away, because every time we release a new offer in business, every time we do something new, every time we jump on a live podcast, it feels like, oh, wow, this is me stepping outside my comfort zone. And there's always that little bit of fear that goes, well, what if I say something wrong? Or, what if this happens? And that's okay. And so the first thing, I kind of explore with clients, if there's that resistance, it's like, okay, well, what is this resistance that's coming up? And what do we need to do to help you feel safe in that, right? Like, a lot of people will go, oh, just feel the fear and do it anyway. And it's like, yes, true. but also it's easier said than done. And maybe it's about taking baby steps there and practicing, practice makes perfect, building confidence in things requires a little bit of work, and, not being afraid to do that work and maybe push yourself slightly out of your comfort zone without, like totally decimating your nervous system at the same time.
Yes. I love that
Yeah.
you said that, because that's something that has always bothered me, like always. And I think when I first started my Facebook group over on Facebook, uh, my Facebook group on Facebook, who knew? It was, I showed up and I talked about fear for a little while. And this was in the beginning of 2021. So at least since then, probably a long time before then, when I was showing up, I was saying how, there's so many people who are like, let's conquer fear. Let's beat your fear or get rid of your fear. And it always bothered me, because I know from experience, I know from studying the human brain and the human condition, that that's not how it works. Right? So one way that I like to kind of explore that space is that let's walk through fear. It'll probably stay with us. We'll probably be hanging around with it. It'll be there, and probably for a long time, maybe even forever. But slowly but surely, you start to kind of get used to it. The fear doesn't go away. It's much like grief, right? The space that you hold for it, though, becomes bigger. And so it seems a lot smaller. And you're able to show up a lot more at peace. And you're able to do the things that feel a little bit more you. And that kind of makes me think of just the next idea within some of our conversations in the past is this idea of the contrast between those two mentalities. To fight fear, which is a very hard skill. It's a very combative type of space, versus the softer approach, which is to befriend fear. And to use it to help you propel yourself forward and create space for the new things that come ahead, which is considered to be a more soft space. And some of the words you've used is the masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to kind of explore that with me for a moment, because that can feel a lot woo for a lot of people. A lot of people are like, ooh, that sounds like we're going to start talking about whether we're Geminis or not. But it's pertinent. And I really want people to understand how pertinent it is when it comes to the way our society is run, and how you don't need to necessarily succumb to those very outdated ways of approaching life and business.
Yes. Amazing. Okay, good. I love this question. And also, if you're a Gemini, love that for you. So good. I'm an Aries, very proud Aries over here.
Right?
Love it. So there's a couple of things I'd really like to kind of speak to here. So the first thing is, and kind of just going back to this fear, moving through it, that kind of thing, something that in terms of a strategy that really brings together the spiritual strategy side of things, something that I really encourage people to do is really stay anchored into your why. So be really clear on your why in business. That from that place of self, that spiritual, who you are, what you're here to do, that purpose, that drives you in business, why you started your business in the first place and the impact that you're here to have. And if you're really clear on that, that's bigger than any fear, So if you feel fear about doing something and taking a step in your business that feels outside of your comfort zone and it makes you go, oh my goodness, that's a really big thing to do, you anchor into, but this is why I'm here. This is what I'm here to do. And that is bigger than any fear, because when we make it about our fear, we're making it about ourselves. We're not making it about, who we're here to serve and the impact we're here to have. And so when we can stay anchored into that space, then that's going to really serve and support us to go, okay, this feels scary, but it's important that I do this because I'm here to have this impact, and I'm here to have this, impact on the people and serve and support who I'm here to serve and support. So staying anchored into that why is the number one strategy that we always come back to whenever that happens. And that's a really
I always see the why as being this bumbly kind of big, soft. Have you seen Big Hero 6?
Yes.
So that big white little, I don't know what he is, that thing. And then fear being like the little gremlin type of thing. And the why going like, I don't think you're going to stop me. and of course the little gremlin can't stop him. He just keeps going. But
Exactly.
I always see just these little images of a scenario.
That's a really
playing
nice
out.
visual.
Right? And I'm just like, yeah, no, I got this. You can hold on to me all you want, but I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Anyways,
thanks for coming for the ride. Thanks for reminding me that this is a really big deal.
Yeah.
Love
Okay,
that.
sorry, go on.
Yeah. So, and that's a really good way to kind of look at like the way that I work with feminine and masculine energy. And, we all have both of these. We have access to these energies, and they're not like, if feminine and masculine, if those words don't feel good to you, then like feel free to think of it as like soft and hard, or like being and doing. The feminine is being and the masculine is doing. And so it's almost like, the way that I always think of it as a journey is it's cyclical. That's definitely not a
We
word.
invent words here, Bec. It's okay. I
love
like
it.
secular, especially with the way you say it.
Cyclical. It's definitely cyclical. But we start with the feminine, because it's almost like, okay, who do we need to be? What is that why? What is that purpose? What is that passion? What is our intuition telling us? And then we lead from there and we go, okay, well, what does that mean for what I need to do? I'm being guided in this direction because this is what feels really good for me. This is what I know is going to help my clients and my people. And then, okay, well, what do I need to do as a result of that? What are the actual steps? And we need that. We can't just be in our feminine all the time. We can't just be without doing. That's not going to get us anywhere. And so what is the balance? And often people sit more in one than the other. Our kind of society and our culture is very much in the doing, like being productive all the time, right?
Hustle culture.
Hustle culture, yeah. So we want to take a step back and go, okay, before I dive right in, let's make sure that this is actually an aligned thing that I'm doing and is actually going to bring me closer to the vision. But we also don't want to get stuck in that place of, I'm just going to work it out. I'm just going to, work out where I'm at, or like, work through the mindset without actually doing. Because sometimes what actually brings the mindset forward is the doing and actually just breaking that barrier.
And that's neurologically proven. Just for anybody, I'm sure that I've spoken about this before, but it is absolutely neurologically proven, this cycle. Through psychology and habit formation, the act of being, and the wiring in your brain becoming rewired as it actively sees you. So the decision's made, but you haven't done anything. But once you do things, you're actually rewiring the neurons in your brain to believe what you've decided that you are.
Yes.
It's a thing.
So good. I love that. See? So it's an actual scientific thing.
It
and,
is.
There's this energetic thing too, and I love that interplay. I love this kind of, interplay of it. And sometimes the other way you can think of this is like the left brain, right brain, the creative versus the analytical brain. We want to be working with these two things together. We don't want to be like splitting it down the middle and being like, the rational analytical is the only way to go versus the, I'm just going to be over here in my creative, like we need both. We need to be doing both. And that's actually how it's going to propel you forward to the vision you want to bring to life by, the interplay of these two things.
And it makes it feel good, right? Like we talk about this, the action, the being and doing and cyclical and all this, but then, and as I said about the science behind it it is backed by science. And the spirituality of it is when you feel that in motion, when that motion starts to happen, it's a really strange thing that is truly indescribable that happens within yourself. This mind-body connection that just feels right. And that I mean, you can tell me your opinion on this, but that's what spirituality feels like. When you're in alignment, that thing, whatever that is.
Yeah. And, it's going to be different for everyone, I think. And that's, my view on spirituality is that like, I've got mine, you've got yours, and we can all be, here. We can all honor that in a way that honors each other and honors ourselves at the same time. And we can bring that into the way we do everything, like the way we do business, the way we do life, the way we do parenting, like we can bring that. It's our values, that's what I see it as. And I 100% agree with you. So good.
I love that. Oh my goodness. And truly, like, I feel like, I almost feel like I'm in a trance. Like I'm hypnotized by this whole conversation because I feel like I'm going between like this insightful being in the moment and being involved within this conversation to this analytical. I've been taking notes. If anybody's been watching, I've been taking notes on, right. So I'm actually also being very analytical and strategic about, how am I going to? So I'm, of course, always in every interaction, curious and learning and growing. And so I'm feeling this flow. So I truly believe that we could probably keep going for the rest of the night. And if we can reflect on, it's 8 p.m. for me, guys. It's 10 a.m. for you, Bec. I mean, I could keep going and I'm tired, but I do need to stop it for now. And cry face. But it's not the end, because Bec, I'm going to ask you to give our audience a little bit more. Like, give me something, that cherry on top that comes to you that will really help people to take the next step in making that connection. And if they're already in that flow, how they can keep it moving forward and stay attuned, because there's always going to be obstacles that come in their way. Then if they're not in that flow, how can they start that process? Give them a little bit of a cherry on top. And then, of course, let people know how they can reach out to you, because after this conversation, if you're not reaching out to Bec, I am seriously questioning your juju, okay? Because this has got to happen.
Please.
Go ahead.
So good. So some final words, I suppose, for anyone listening is really, when you think about how you are in business right now, if you're in flow, amazing, celebrating you for that. And to stay in that place, it's really about that kind of cyclical, always checking back in with, how you're feeling, what your vision is, are you in alignment with that? And then acting from that place of, okay, let's continue on this journey and continuing to check back in, because that can change, right? And know that it's okay for that to change. It's okay for the vision to change. It's okay for those feelings to change. If things are feeling out of alignment in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, 2 years' time, it's okay to change your mind. You don't have to stay stagnant in that. It can move with you. It can flow with you. And you will always continue to be in that flow if you're open to that. When we get out of that, we're really rigid. And so flow invites you to stay in flow, funnily enough. So that's what I would recommend to you if you're in that space. If you're in that space of feeling like there's something that's not aligned here right now, there's something that is feeling, really out of alignment for me, the first place to kind of come back to is self, and work out what that is, and then work out what you can change or what needs to change to help you get back into alignment. And that's obviously going to be really, really personal to you, and relies on where you're at and things like that in your business right now. What I would say is, don't be afraid to, really lean into what it is that you want. Don't be afraid to really go, this is what I want. And if that looks different to what everybody on the internet is telling you should want, then that's okay. Really trust. Self-trust is key when we're bringing these two things together, spirituality and strategy. And so with that, if you'd like to connect with me, you can come and find me on Instagram. That's probably the best place to find me. I'm at bec.cuzzillo. And at the moment, I am enrolling into my Spiritual Business Mistress Mind, which is my 6-month mastermind for spiritual women who want to build abundant, profitable, sustainable businesses in a way that aligns with their values and spirituality. And I would love to have a conversation with you. So please come and chat, say hi if you've listened to this. I would love to connect with you.
I love that so much. And I love those final, just the final two little tips there. And what I've noted here, just as like a recap, is that those in flow check-ins are really important. And it's okay to change your mind, to change your direction, because evolution is kind of what we're looking for. And then for those who aren't, check-ins are really important. We got right back to that, right? Just take a minute. I frequently say this to people. You are very much like a slingshot. You need to pull back sometimes in order to be launched forward.
Yeah.
So with that, Bec, thank you so much for being on this show. You've really, I truly, I feel like a flower who's bloomed in this conversation. So thank you so much. I hope that everyone else can agree. Give me all of the love. Give Bec all of the love. If you've been here and you felt that same feeling within your person, however you want to embody that, and join us next time, because you're going to hear from me at least once a week, and not just from me, more importantly, from my amazing guests just like Bec. So we'll chat soon.